Hello and welcome to Alan's Ancestors. It's a beautiful day in early spring and this tree has got a few little buds that are going to come out, but the leaves aren't there yet. In the first video I showed you how to get started with your tree and build it. Now we're going to put leaves on the tree. What do I mean by that? We're going to look at census records. We're going to see where people worked, where they lived, who was living with them. There may be sisters and brothers that you didn't know about, aunts and uncles, visitors. So let's now have a look through the census records.
Before we start, let me show you this page on the National Archive website. The National Archives is where the census returns are stored, and this is probably the best site to find out all about the census returns, their history, and the methodology behind it all. You can also see what censuses are available, what years, and also where you can find the originals, and also where you can find transcriptions for free. And we'll be talking about all of those sites in just a moment. If we look at the bottom of the page here, it tells you all about 1911 censuses onwards. Also, we'll be covering later on the 1939 register, which was done because the 1931 census got destroyed in fire, and they needed to take a register of the citizens of the UK so they could issue out ID cards and also ration books. I will be doing a deep dive into the National Archives website and the National Archives in general in a future video. But for now, let's look at the census returns that you can see the transcriptions of, FamilySearch.org and FreeCen. We'll start by looking at FamilySearch.org, which is run by the Church of Latter-day Saints. It's a free-to-use website which you can build your family tree on. You can also search for a variety of records. They've got their own records and they also have links to external records, which you will probably have to pay for on a subscription site. If we search using the main search bar here, it'll give us every record under the sun, which can be good, but in this case we just want to look for the 1861 census as a comparison between the two sites, FamilySearch.org and FreeCen. So we'll go down here and we'll search for the England 1861 census. And here it is. So we're going to put in my 2x great-grandmother, Eliza Gange, in the search. So we're going to look for the one that's in Southampton. And there she is. So let's click on that. And you'll see this is a transcription from the original document. And in the transcription, we can see the details for Eliza Gange and also her husband George Gange, who is the head and born in Pendermer in Somerset, and also listed as John Barbary, who was Eliza's son from her first marriage. And then we have a lodger who is from the same area as George Gange, is in Pendermer in Somerset. But that's it. And I'm pretty sure there's more than just 3 relatives and 1 lodger living in the Gange household in 1861. Why the transcription leaves out all the other people who would have been living there at the time, including my great-grandfather, Frederick Joseph Gange, I really don't know. As you can see, there's a button there where you can click to see the original, and it says it'll take you to the National Archives, but when we do click on it, it actually takes us to Find My Past, who have been licensed the rights to show the original documents. So you do need to have a subscription to one of the sites to view the original document. The other site I was going to show you is FreeCen, which is one of the FreeBMD family, and it's run by volunteers, and the transcriptions are all done by volunteers. I've actually volunteered myself, and it is worth looking at. Let's search for Eliza Gange in FreeCen. So I'll put her name in the search bar up there. So as you can see, it has all the counties in England. So if we choose Hampshire and Southampton. And this shows you that for Southampton, only the 1861 and 1891 censuses have been fully transcribed. If you need to, if you have a very common name, then you can put all these extra filters on to make a search easier for you. But for now, let's just click on 1861. Now let's see what this gives us. And as you can see at the top here, we have the census return details, including the address. And if we look down here, there are far more people on this transcription than there were on the FamilySearch.org transcription. As before, we have George Gange, his wife Eliza, and Eliza's son John Barbary, but we also have the details of all the other sons and daughters, as well as a niece called Emily, who is from the same area as the lodger. Interesting enough, benefits of the original document is that you can look at it and one glance you can see everybody who lives in the surrounding houses and what they did and occupations and the type of people, etc. There is a nice feature with FreeSend where you can click on this button, next dwelling, on previous dwelling, and you can see the neighborhood that way as well. Look at the next dwelling and it is the Apollo Inn. So the family lived next door to a pub. I hope they had lots of good times in that pub, celebrations, etc., or just drink after work. And you can play around going back and forth just to see who the neighbours were. And we have, let's go back number 6, and it's the Cave family. The more you do family history, the more you'll hear the term brick wall. One way to knock down the brick wall that you're having trouble with is through what they call a fan club, family, associates, neighbours. And so you can look at the neighbours here, and that might be a good clue as to a missing document, anything like that. Now we've looked at those two sites, let's look at some original documents, going backwards from 1921, because you know those people who are, and going to go all the way back to 1841. To do this, we are going to use Find My Past. Before we do anything, we need to start off with facts that we know, and we're going to look at two families, the Gange family and the Monk family. What do we know about the Gange family that we're going to start with? Well, we know Frederick Joseph Gange, born in Southampton in 1857. We know Sarah Ann Gange, born in London in 1867. And then we have the Monk family. What do we know about the Monk family? Well, we've got Dora Maud Monk, born in Southampton in 1899. We have George Francis Monk, born in Belcowell in 1871. And we have Ellen Blanche Monk, born in 1877. These facts will help us get the correct census return. To get to the census, we can either press this button here, Census, or we can go to Search, Census Land and Surveys, or there is a quick link up here to the 1921 census, which is where we're going to start. We're going to start with Frederick Joseph Gange, born in 1857 in Southampton. So let's put those details in and see what we get. And there is only one result. It says the birth year is 1856, but that could be because of the time the census fell with regard to Frederick Joseph's birthday. And these two icons here represent the transcript and the original record. Let's look at the transcript first. We can see 3 people in this transcript as Frederick Joseph Gange, Sarah Ann Gange, and Nellie Gange, who was the witness, if you remember from the last video, she was the witness in Frederick Joseph Gange and Dora Maud Monk's marriage certificate. It follows that if Nellie Gange is the daughter of Frederick Joseph Gange and Sarah Ann Gange, that she must be the sister of Frederick Joseph Gange. She's not just a cousin or an auntie or whatever, she's his sister. So we get that information from the census already. That's one great clue just there. Now, the address of where they're living you can't see that on the actual census return itself. You have to go to the next page, which is the cover page, and you can see there it's 2 Princess Street, and that is Frederick Joseph's handwriting. Princess Street used to be in the chapel area of Southampton. It no longer exists. It's where St. Mary's Stadium now is, I think, around that area. So let's zoom in and see what this all says. We've got Frederick Joseph Gange, head of the family, age 65 and 1 month. It says that he's male and he's married, around that, written diagonally to avoid the big blotch of ink there. Of course, it says that he was born in Southampton, that's his nationality, sort of. And then we have Sarah Ann Gange, 54 and 8 months. Female, married and born in London. The daughter, Nellie Gange, who is single and female and is 23, 7 months. If we go across, we can see that the 1921 census gave so much more information than previous censuses. Not only did it give his occupation as seaman, it also showed you that he worked for the White Star and Dominion Line, and his workplace was Southampton Docks. It gives a lot more information than birth, marriage, and death certificates. And by the way, death certificates we'll be looking at in a later video. They're a bit different to marriage and birth certificates in the way you find them. So see that Nellie was a dressmaker of her own account and working at home. So that means she was what we'd call now self-employed and based. Her business was based at home. So this time we're going to do it a different way. We're going to click on Census to look for the Monk family, and we're going to use Dora Maud Monk to do that. We know that she was born in Southampton, and we know her date of birth is 1899. And we're going to see if she was living in Southampton with the family in 1911. And what we can see is that there are no results for a Dora Maud Monk in Southampton in 1911. So let's get rid of the Southampton. And now when we search, there are 29 results. There's quite a few Doras, but I can only see one Dora M. Monk. Strangely, it says that they are in Wales. Well, let's click on that one and see if it is the correct one. And we have transcription, of course, and we have the original. Let's look at the transcription first. And as we can see, the head of the family is George Monk, and he was born in Belkerwell in 1871. So this looks good. And we've also got an Ellen Blanche Monk. So it looks like we've found them living in Wales in 1911. Now, it would appear, if you look on the right-hand side, that George and Ellen moved around quite a bit, because if we look at the places of birth for their children, it's a mixture of Southampton, Eastleigh, Aldershot, Glamorgan. Now, if you didn't know much about Ellen B's family at this stage, you have found out a bit more now, because there's her mother, who is seen as mother-in-law, relation to head mother-in-law, and her sister as well. You can see that George is a pork butcher, which we knew from the last video, and he's working on his own account, and they are living on or above or behind the premises. And we can see that Ellen and Ethel, Ethel is Ellen's sister, as we can see, they are both helping out in the shop. Now let's view the original record, and there's a very important piece of information on this record that has only appeared in the 1911 census, and that is females, usually the wife of the head of the family, said how long they had been married. And as we can see, it says that Ellen B had been married to George Monk for 14 years. So if we didn't know before, we do now that they were married in quick maths in 1897, there or thereabouts. So that's a good point to start looking, if you didn't know before, looking for the marriage certificate. Another interesting feature is this here, which shows you how many children were born and how many are still living. Now, again, if you didn't know how many siblings your ancestor had, this would be a very clear indication. If you knew they maybe had 2 or 3 brothers or sisters, and it said here they had a total of 6 children, let's say, then you've got some searching to do. And it's a really good tool to get more people on your family tree. So now let's go and find Frederick Joseph Gange in the 1911 census. I'm pretty sure it's a safe bet to look in Southampton. I don't think he moved around a lot. So let's do that now. And yes, there he is. Let's look at that. And as we can see, there are now 2 offspring named. Nellie Gange and we have Andrew Gange, born in 1900. So let's look at the original record to view those important bits of information, and we can see that they've been married for 24 years. And in here, where it says about offspring, it says they had 6 children, 5 still living. So who are all these children? Let's see. It's one of the reasons I like to go backwards with the census records, because you start with what you know and you can verify facts the more people you find. We have Frederick Joseph, 55, Sarah Ann, 44, Nellie is 13, and Andrew is 11. And as we expect, Frederick is a seaman in the merchant service. Now, 17-year-old Frederick Joseph Gage II is missing, so let's see if we can find where he is. Let's look at some census returns I've done previously, and I do recommend that you file away your census returns in an easy-to-find way. Now, mine are in family, then by year, transcript, and image. So we look at Gage family in 1911, Frederick Joseph Gage II, and let's look at the transcript first. Now, it would appear that he is a boy sailor in a training facility. The name of the institution is Superb, and it's in Portsmouth, and that was a training vessel, I believe. Now, if we look at the original document for this, we can see that he is sharing the page with a lot of lads who are also age 17. They're described on here as boy. That's not because they're male children, that is their rank in the Royal Navy. Now let's have a look at the 1901 census for Sarah Ann Gage. As we can see, there's Sarah Ann, and she's described as the wife of the head, even though the main person, the main breadwinner, if you wish, at the house was Sarah Ann. She was still just, in those days, just the wife of the head. And it does say there, head away at sea. The other members of the household, as we can see, are Sarah E., Harriet R., Frederick J., Nellie, and Andrew. So that's 5 out of 6 children. Now, I don't know if the 6th one came in after them, or in the middle of it all, or before them. So it's something that needs to be investigated. As we can see, this now has other households on the same sheet. So the single household per sheet is from 1911 onwards. And this gives you a clear indication of who is living with your family in terms of neighbours. You can see on here where everyone works, type of people they are, etc., etc. And as we mentioned before, this is handy for fan club. I am actually going to do a video on breaking down brick walls, and fan club method is one of the ways I'll look at it as well. So now we're going to look at the 1901 census for George Monk, and it looks like he was living with the Robinson family as a butcher's assistant. Of course, with this, you can see all the people he was working with as well, which may help you with, if this was your ancestor, it may help you with any research. Here he left home and decided to branch out and become a pork butcher, and this was probably a route to it. Now, as we go back in time, we look at the census records going backwards, we can see that there is less information on there as we go backwards. This will be highlighted, what I'm going to show you now. So this is the 1881 census for the Monk family in Berkwell, and as you can see, we have William John Monk, the father, and Emily, his wife, and George Francis Monk, the son, is 10 years old. There is less information than the ones we've looked at so far, but we do have the information that he was a farmer and dealer of 20 acres. He employed 1 man. And we can see his family. We have Emily, the wife, and all his daughters and sons. There's George Francis. So this one now is 1871. One thing to note about this is that the returns officer would have been the person who writing this. It wouldn't have been the household members at all. Now, the older census records may be basic, but they are still good enough to build a family tree around, because they do give relationships between everybody in the household connected to the head. There's not much else information it gives, but that is enough to get you a bit further back in your research. And in this census return, we can see that Eliza Monk was the head of the family. She was a widow. So by this stage, obviously, her husband was dead. So you can look up his records, his death certificate, and everything else based on that. So she would have been George Francis Monk's grandmother, the mother of William John Monk. And it said that she is a farmer of 38 acres, employing one labourer. So that is useful information. But if we go back to the 1841 census, we can see that although we get the names and ages of the people in the household, we don't get told their relationship to the head. If we look down here, it's fairly obvious what the relationships are. At least we think that we think they're obvious. We've got William Monk, 34, Eliza Monk, 34, and we have Mary, who is 1. So it's probably likely that that's a husband and wife and daughter, but you never know. It might be that they're husband and wife looking after a niece. If we look here at the Gage family in 1841, it's not obvious at all how these people are related. I have absolutely no idea at the moment. And of course, part of the fun of family history genealogy is that you've got to look into these things, got to do your digging, got to do your investigations, verifying facts. And I've got some of these, but not all. And so now on to the 1939 register, which, as I said earlier, was done because just before the Second World War, the government wanted to know who was who and wanted to get out ID cards and ration books, and the 1931 census had been destroyed by fire. So on Find My Past Again, there is a quick link at the bottom here, and I'm going to click on there and search for Nellie Susan Gage. I chose Nellie because I know that she was living in 1939. Of course, name, date of birth, and we think she may have been in Hampshire. If you don't know, then you don't know, but she's probably in Hampshire. We can see that there's a Nellie S. Gage, born in 1897, so I'm pretty sure that'll be her in Southampton. And she's living in Saxon Road. So let's have a look at the details. Look at the transcription. We can see name, date of birth, and she's single. And we can see that her profession, she's written down needlework, alteration, and to ready-made coats and gowns. Well, that is quite the description, but we know she was a seamstress, tailoress back in the 1921 census, so this is definitely her. So now let's look at the original document. And as you can see, there's a big black line. It's a redacted entry. And the reason for that is anybody aged 100 or less will not be shown on the 1939 register. If you know that someone's passed away, and you can inform the National Archives that they need to take away the black line so that you can see their entry. Well, we can see her details now. She's needlework, alterations, etc. So most people just say seamstress, but fair play to her. Good on you, Nellie. And once again, we can see all the people who live with her there. And again, it's a very useful tool for knocking down those brick walls, etc. And that is the 1939 register.
Well, I hope you found that interesting and helpful. In the next video, now that you've put leaves on the tree, we're going to put some blossoms on the tree too. All right, I'll see you then. Bye.